In this reflective practice video, I'm going to be talking about my time on production and the days we actually shot. I'll be going through some of the things I think we did well and some of the setbacks we had on set, and just talk about my experience and things that I've learned as a result. Production was probably one of the busiest but most rewarding parts of this project. It was the culmination of 6 months of planning coming together to make the project a success. And I can't iterate enough how important the role of planning is when it comes to making a production, as it affected everything else to do with the project, because there were so many different aspects of the shoot that needed to come together just to get the production to work. And if just one of those things hadn't come off or didn't work, the entire production would have fell apart. I had to make sure that all the props made it to set on time, as well as the actors had the right times to come to set, alongside securing the location. So in the grand scheme of things, what did planning actually allow me to achieve? There was a multitude of key areas where effective planning had significant impact on the actual production. First off, it let me demonstrate a range of skills, particularly in organisation and the management of the cast and crew. With the tight schedule, having the ability to manage the cast and crew effectively allowed us to make the most of our time on set and overall be more productive with the time we had. Extensive planning ensured that everyone had everything they needed to complete their set tasks for the day, which led to a highly coordinated effort where the entire team were able to work like a well-oiled machine. For example, conducting a location recce at the start allowed us to find the perfect location that wasn't just conveniently located. It was actually large enough that it accommodated all of our scenes. And this one decision meant we didn't have to split our shoot over multiple days, traveling to different locations to get different scenes that we needed. It was all there, and without that location recce, we wouldn't have been able to do that. It saved us time and considerable logistical hassle. Creating a shot list was another crucial element of our pre-production. This list enabled me, the director, and our director of photography to stay on track with the coverage we needed for each scene. In addition to this, distributing call sheets and scripts gave the actors enough time to learn their lines, and also the crew members to know when they were needed on set and what gear was going to be available to them. So they all understood their schedules and knew exactly where they needed to be, which minimised downtime and kept the shoot running smoothly. These small steps taken in pre-production had a much larger effect in the bigger picture. They ensured that the set ran smoothly and allowed us to adapt quickly to any setbacks that we encountered on the day, and ultimately contributed to the success of the project. Effective planning was the foundation that supported every aspect of my project, making the process more efficient and enjoyable for everyone involved. But this is supported by a post that Studio Binder put out about the importance of planning. So on their website it states the following: pre-production can be overwhelming even for the seasoned producer. It requires knowledge of many facets of production, as well as the ability to prevent crises down the line. It's not always easy, but if you stay organised, it's pretty simple. Furthermore, Studio Binder also posted a video about the pre-production process, interviewing industry professionals and giving their insights on pre-production as a whole, and how their individual roles go alongside with that process.
The pre-production process, you cast a very broad net. You're trying to capture all the information you can, distribute all the information that you can, and you're honing that down to a very fine point, aiming towards your shooting day. So once you get to that shooting day, you already essentially have walked through that day, or you've shot that day. You're driving everything to the detail of that particular shooting day.
An important position in the pre-production process is the assistant director.
In the simplest form, we're the managers, but in the most complex form, we're actually kind of the central processing unit. We are constantly taking in information from all of our departments that we work with. We process the information, we distribute the information. We are responsible for setting up, planning, managing the daily activities of the film crew. So it's the constant back and forth, very dynamic environment where you're making plans, making backup plans, etc., to help you make the movie.
So Assistant Director Donald Starks talks about scheduling and the wide range of factors that can affect the schedule and budget. He describes his role as an assistant director as almost a central processing unit of the production, taking in all of the key information from different departments and putting it all together in a bigger picture. And due to my film being of a smaller scale, I took on the responsibilities of what would normally be left to an assistant director. This meant I would have to work closely with my producer to sort out all of the logistics for my project, such as scheduling, locations, script writing and budgeting, to name a few, which all play a major part on the actual production day, as well as the overall quality of the project as a whole. Okay, so let's move on to some of the issues that we actually had on set. And unfortunately, some of these setbacks caused a bit of a domino effect later down the line. And looking back, the majority of this could have been solved with better planning. So when we arrived on set on the day of the shoot, we were expecting some of the costumes to arrive with our producer. Unfortunately, the delivery company somehow lost our package with the costumes in it. They would be arriving around midday by the time they'd actually found them, which meant we had 5 hours on set where we couldn't film anything. This of course caused a huge scheduling problem, as all of the scenes we had planned for that day had to be pushed back to the second shoot, which was also our final day of filming, might I add, which, as you can guess, placed massive amounts of pressure on both myself and the crew on the second day of production. Looking back, I believe this is an issue we could have solved if we'd planned more, by taking into account the delivery time for the costumes to arrive and the potential for them to arrive late. We should have ordered them as soon as our cast was set and their measurements had been sent along. By doing this, my producer would have had the costumes at least a week in advance, and if there was an issue like there was one on set, he'd have an extra week to get them to his doorstep, meaning that we would have been able to go ahead as scheduled. So how did we manage to tackle this issue given the situation? When it came to the dreaded battle that was the second day of production, we all tried to make the most of the time we had, and utilised our time efficiently, to ensure that the setting up and taking down of scenes was as quick as possible. I was able to demonstrate my skills and adaptability when taking on this issue, as on the day I had an idea when we encountered this problem. Due to us completing a location recce and most of the scenes needing to be filmed on Tanfield Railway, the different locations between the scenes were in roughly the same area and within a 30-second walk from one another. So I had the idea of sending my assistant director along with some runners to begin setting up scene 2 while we continued to film scene 1. In the meantime, I was continuing the shoot in the first location, directing actors and getting the best performance I could out of them, so that when we'd finished filming in scene 1, we could move directly to scene 2, and it made such an easier transition because all we had to do was set up the cameras. This saved us so much time on the shoot, and I think had we not done this, I believe we would have fallen behind schedule more so than we already were. Although we did what we could to use our time to the best of our ability, there were some sacrifices we had to make in order to get the film finished. One such sacrifice was coverage, especially in the final scene. We were unable to shoot enough shots to cover the final scene effectively, which meant that in the edit, I had a lot less footage to work with. Coverage plays an essential part in the editing process, as it's vital to give the editors the footage they need to help convey the narrative in a compelling way. Otherwise, you'll edit yourself into a corner and not have anything to cut to without it looking janky. This is a situation that I actually found myself in due to the lack of coverage of our final scene, and it's something I'll further discuss in another reflective practice video. The importance of shooting coverage is iterated quite a lot in the book The Art of the Cut by Greg Keast, which is something I read going into post-production in order to refine my editing skills. There's nothing worse than sitting down to edit a project and realising there's not enough footage to work with to tell the story completely. Well, I believe for what was essentially one day of shooting, we were able to get a surprising amount of shots done. However, we could have resolved this issue during pre-production planning. By spreading the workload over an extra day or two of shooting, it would have taken the pressure off myself and my team, allowing us to get the coverage that we so desperately needed in that final scene. I believe by doing this it would have benefited my project so much more than what we actually did, and it also backs up my point regarding the importance of organisation and planning. If I were to do this project again, I would set realistic expectations for myself and the crew, ensuring we have enough time to get everything we needed, and ensuring that there's enough time to spare so that if something went wrong, we have time to think of a solution without falling behind schedule.